Hey everybody, Rishi again here. Namaste. The divine in me bows down and honors the divine in you. Uh, I just wanted to read to you another blog that I wrote a long time ago. It's called Material Enjoyment versus Spiritual Enjoyment. Without further ado, here I go. In my opinion, there is nothing wrong with external sensory enjoyment if done responsibly and consensually. In fact, material and spiritual enjoyment are two sides of the same coin, yin and yang. One is objective external pleasure, and the other is subjective internal pleasure. Enjoying objects of the senses is relative to the culture. In some cultures, it is seen as a part of life, and within other cultures, it is viewed as morally or ethically wrong. Within Hinduism, universal Hinduism anyways, there are many branches with differing philosophies. But within one branch of universal Hinduism, kama, or material pleasure, is actually a goal prescribed for human beings in their youthful age. As humans get older, however, they must eventually realize that kama, or material pleasure, is inferior and more impermanent than when in comparison to the eternal pleasure of the soul reuniting with the divine or God. However, if one wishes to stay spiritual while enjoying his or her senses, he or she must remain in divine God consciousness when or while pursuing the objects of the senses and be unattached to them. The very nature of material enjoyment causes attachment because we are addicted to what gives us happiness, pleasure, and relief, whether it is objective or subjective pleasures. So if one wishes to enjoy the objects of the senses, whether it be sex, drugs, food, or whatever, he or she must be willing to make that experience sacred. For example, let's talk about sex. It is one of the most sublime and spiritual experiences we can have, but it also can be limiting, superficial, and meaningless if it is performed with only lust in mind. Sex for pleasure is not a sin, but it is very addictive and it becomes an obstacle to spirituality when one constantly craves for more and more, because sex is one of the most attaching and addicting acts that one can do, including masturbation. However, when one combines sex, or any material enjoyment, with divine consciousness, then it becomes a divine and sublime experience and act. Many will testify that the best sex occurs with a partner that you have gotten to know and love. When one sees God in their sexual partner, then the sexual act transcends the mundane into a sublime experience by achieving divine sexual union, having the God within you unite and merge with the Godhead of your partner. Another example is smoking. When smoking all the time without thinking of God, it becomes destructive, not only objectively speaking, but subjectively speaking as well. However, if one practices self-inquiry and thinks of God while doing it, then even smoking can be a spiritual practice. Many Hindus, native indigenous people, and people from all over the world have smoking as part of their tradition and culture. Some religious people, such as fundamentalist Hindus and Buddhists, even though some yogis who worship Shiva, for example, smoke marijuana, and some Buddhists also drink or smoke, but some religious people or fundamentalists may say that any intoxication is bad due to the attachment involved, but we must not be attached to anything, even detachment itself. Being attached to detachment is just as dangerous as being attached to attachment. So moderation when enjoying the objects of the senses and making it a spiritual experience by reflecting on God while doing the activity is crucial in order for one to eventually transcend the senses and to meditate on the self. If you can indulge in material enjoyment while being unattached to enjoyment and being fully concentrated on divine awareness, then you are walking on the right path towards eventual mastery of the senses. It is part of human nature to search for enjoyment and pleasure, and to shun what is displeasing to the senses. So, if you enjoy the senses while being God conscious, then it is better than not being God conscious at all. It is even better to be completely free from all attachments and control one's senses, but that is not a realistic perspective to have when being in this material world, which is a world full of illusions and attachments. We were all put here in this material realm because we have attachments and desires, so it's best not to judge one for his or her desires and attachments, even if they are different from yours. Make sure your hands are clean before you judge others because they sin differently than you do. If you can enjoy the world without sensory enjoyment, then good for you. But don't look down upon others who do enjoy their senses with concentrated divine consciousness. Like I said earlier, material enjoyment is relative to the culture. Some will say it's good, and others will frown upon it. Regardless of one's opinion, sensory experience is a vital part of every and any culture. Whether it's seen as good or bad is in the eye of the beholder. So don't judge others, for we all have our cravings and attachments in this world of samsara. Divine consciousness in whatever you do is key for the evolution of consciousness, whether it be material or spiritual enjoyment. Thank you.